Anyway, really lovely to meet you all or see you all. Thanks for coming out. My name's Karen Borchert, and okay, thanks, Annette. How am I doing better? Yes. My name's Karen Borchert, and I am the founder and CEO currently of a company called Alpaca. We work about 20 yards down that hallway, right there, right through the Lala Gallery, which is wonderful if you haven't seen it lately. And we are a company that is focused on well-being, morale, and retention of a really important profession, and that is teachers. So we spend pretty much all of our days and many of our evenings over there figuring out how we can find ways to celebrate and recognize teachers, how we can understand how to listen to and work with teachers to help support the needs that they have, and how to keep this really important, vibrant, and really special profession not only alive and well in our communities, but also thriving and advancing as a profession in the world. So that's what I do. I grew up in Lincoln. I left for a while, came back to Omaha about 12 years ago, and started this company about 3 years ago. So it's such a pleasure to be here. I was just telling Teresa my other outfit choice for today was that outfit, and so it's a really, really great that I didn't make that choice, but also that would have been funny. So I'm super happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I love what you're talking about with like the ethos behind your company, what you're building. Tell us how that looks in practice. What does Alpaca do, and how do the things that you do work toward these really important goals that and visions you have in mind?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right, how am I doing? On my mic? Okay, good. So what do? Alpaca does kind of two big things. We put them in the big buckets of listen and support. So on the listen side of the house, we've created a pretty interesting little way for teachers to check in with how they're feeling at work. It might be called a pulse survey in some companies, and kind of in a corporate environment. It is a 2-minute survey that can be done once a week, once a month, however often you want, to check in on how you're feeling at work. It is a little different than other types of surveys because we don't like to ask you, how are you doing on a scale of 1 to 5, because we think that's a really impossible question to answer. And so we ask with real words instead. We ask you to tell us the words that you would use to describe work. And then we are building on the back end of that a algorithm and analysis of those words and how positive or negative they are and how they align to the things that drive teachers to stay in their jobs. And then we provide that data back to school principals and school districts to say, hey, you've got some really wonderful, ambitious, hopeful, joyful teachers over here. You might be experiencing some loneliness or some isolation over here. And you've got some really wonderful leaders who are stepping up to take care of their teams over here, and here's what you should know about that. So that's the listen side of what we do. It's basically the most exciting work I've ever done in my life. I love it. We have over 150,000 inputs from real teachers about the words that they use to describe work, and I think those words are going to be important for us to listen to in the next few years as we go forward in kind of an uncertain time. The other thing we do is the most fun thing that we do as a company, which is our kind of support and celebrate side. So we actually started, people always ask me where our name comes from. We started with basically creating Stitch Fix for teachers. So we said, let's make a subscription care package built just for educators, made up of the things that teachers actually want and need and will use in their classrooms every day. And let's make it absolutely delightful and so much fun. So we built a really, really joyful brand with a really, really joyful mascot and said, okay, let's see what we can do. So we make care packages. We design a new one every month. We send, for most of our schools across the country, we send a kit, and it has a few packs, and it has an activity or an idea for who to give them to. So sometimes we'll say, hey, you've got some unsung heroes in your building that might not be recognized. Let's give the packs to them this month, or let's give the packs this month to teachers who are helping other teachers. Makes it really easy for principals to recognize their teachers and celebrate them, and it makes teachers feel recognized every single month of the year. So those are the two big things we do. We can do them apart, but we like to do them together. So that's our favorite way to do it. So that principals and school leaders have a really great way to listen, and then a really great way to support. So that's what we do. That wasn't a very short answer.
Well, love it so much. It's awesome information. Appreciate you sharing. I would love to dive into both of those sides of this. And so when you were talking about these packages for teachers, and you're talking about, uncertain times, how is it that you think about like the monetization part of schools, especially when schools might be under budget cuts, and making these, investments into the teachers that are necessary for next steps, but also they have to really think about the money part and the budget part on their end?
Yeah. Good question. Good one. So it costs about $250 to hire a sub for a day. And it costs about $20,000 to replace a teacher. And what we do costs a school about $3,000 or $4,000 a year to take care of their teachers all year long. So for us, if you save, if you save 10 or 15 substitute teacher days, you're good. If you can keep yourself from having to rehire, retrain, rebuild, reculture with one teacher in one building, it's pretty worth it. But all that to say, that doesn't mean that we don't hit budget constraints in the selling process. We sell to both schools and districts, and sometimes we come up against that. There are some really good programs out there, both public and private, around teacher retention. Some of states are building in kind of teacher retention and teacher vacancy grants. There's title funds that are being used for this, and then there's a lot of creativity happening at the school level to figure out how to keep our teachers. And it's you can buy a whole bunch of gift cards and hand them out and hope your teachers stay, or you can do something really thoughtful. And so we try to be on the thoughtful end of that, and it's kind of why we do things as sort of kind of bespoke and intentionally as we do, so that because what matters, what we think matters, and what we hear from teachers matters, is that it feels genuine and it feels real and it feels not like a token. Everybody gets a gift card is like, it's great. I mean, it helps your Target bill a little bit, but mostly you just go to Target. And so what you really want is to feel like somebody sees you and hears you and recognizes you and knows you. That's what we all want, I think, and I think it's what we all want at work. And so we try to find ways to do that because we think it far outpays for itself.
Did you have all of these ideas in mind prior to Alpaca and wanting to put it together and create that solution, or did this kind of come about? I think I'll pause there.
No way. We did not have all of this figured out, and we still don't. So we really started out like this company is like an airplane we've been like putting the wings onto as we've been like getting down the runway. Like it's wild. So we actually started out just with the Stitch Fix idea. That was the only thing, and that's all we did was care packages for teachers. We did it through like a parent pay platform. So we had like a little crowdfunding platform, school by school, and that worked so well where it worked well, and it worked so bad where it didn't. And very quickly we found out that wasn't going to be a very viable business model. And so we shifted and changed to selling directly to schools and districts, and that was a shift. And then very early on, from the beginning, honestly, we took a page from Stitch Fix's book, actually, on this one, and said, we're not doing this without data. We're not doing this without listening and asking all the time. How are we doing? What do you need now? What's your new favorite thing? What's the right thing? How are you feeling now? And so we've always included anonymous surveys with our packs, and we went back to that data really just a year and a half ago and realized we had quite a lot of it. And we said, okay, hold on a second. These guys, these principals and leaders are out kind of in these conferences and fields saying, we just wish we knew what teachers are actually wanting and what they're saying that they need. We don't have a way to know that. So we just guess and we just do a snack card or like bring coffee in or something. And we were like, we know. And so we were like, all right, we're gonna see what we can do. So we literally just honestly built it out of like Excel spreadsheets and Canva for like 6 months until, thank God, we hired Macy and have a software developer now. And so we really did. We just kind of built like surveys for the principals out of that. And that's actually what gave rise to the software product. And that's really what's taken off. So no, nothing was ever figured out beforehand. We started the company by taking coffee to teachers after school during the pandemic for like 3 months and just interviewed hundreds of teachers and hundreds of principals about what they needed and what they cared about. And we've built it listening and trying again, listening and trying again since then. So
amazing.
Ask me in a year, it'll look different, I bet, in a year than it does now.
You know, one of the things that the conversations that come up a lot in the startup ecosystem is the thought of like, will you go for an investment in this company? Is the company scalable? What does that look like? To me, it sounds like from a project that was really important, it's become this breadth of knowledge, all of this data that's not only helpful for a business, but helpful for a major industry in our society, and aligns nicely with the thought of how to grow and how to increase capacity. Can you talk about what that journey looked like in kind of building from those initial ideas to now, where there's a focus on the ability to even take on investors? And if you would like to give any insight into your recent investment progress.
Sure. So we raised money 2 times. We raised money at the very beginning from a group of really fantastic friends, family, and angel investors who really said, okay, we're going to invest in this idea. We don't know what's going to happen, but she's awfully passionate about it. So let's give her some money and she'll stop calling us. And then when we started raising money the second time, like, I can just go ahead and tell you right now that if you ever want the fastest no you'll ever get, tell somebody that you make care packages for teachers and sell them to schools. It's a real fast way to know. But what we learned and what we figured out as we were in the middle of that raise, we were figuring out the software side of this business and the data side of this business, and we happened to catch some momentum with that at the same time that we caught some interest in the education technology space. And luckily, we were able to kind of combine those things and raise a really great seed round, which was really, really fun and very, very exciting. But there's no easy path to fundraising, no matter what. Of course, I think anyone who's done it knows that. It is challenging if you sell to K-12 education. It's challenging if you don't sell pure software, and it's challenging if you've got any kind of social mission that you are adding alongside your financial outcomes. And it's really important to just do it anyway. So that's what we learned.
I wasn't expecting you to conclude with that, and I love that. It's really important you do it anyway. Yeah. So it sounds like to me that a lot of your kind of drive and determination was essentially not even impacted by your ability of accomplishing like a fundraising round, that you were going to do this anyway, and that was really the focus. And this is just like, I don't know if added bonus is kind of like reductive for the conversation, but
definitely we had to do the fundraise.
Okay.
We'd have some big challenges if we didn't, but we had to do it. But there was a lot of ways to say like this. There's no way to raise money for this company. Honestly, like we actually had a lot of people who were like, I don't think you're going to raise money for this kind of company, not unless it's really different. Mm-hmm. And it's just not our thing. And like, there's formulas, there's ways that investors do this, and that's okay. That's right. We honestly found like our investors and the people that chose to come into this round, it's actually a really unique set of leads. Mm-hmm. So it's a kind of almost a 4-part lead. It is Invest Nebraska, which is a economic development government entity. It's Logier Foundation, which is a philanthropic strategic investor. Like, they don't make a lot of investments, but they do, and they did with us. It's Nelnet, which is a corporate strategic, and then it's Workshop Ventures, which is a traditional VC, but with an impact investment focused. And so really it's, government, philanthropy, corporate, and VC coming together because the problem was important, and because we gotta solve this problem. But you do have to get pretty creative sometimes if you don't have a company that is your, straight down the middle, software only, app-based, selling to, SMB, and then enterprise. If you're doing something that's got impact, if you're doing something that has a less than absolutely perfect, kind of customer profile. Like, K-12 education is a hard thing to sell into, just as government is hard to sell into, and all those things. But all of these different industries also need great products and great solutions and great companies to be in them. So that's why I say, you do it, you got to do it anyway.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah. Can you tell us? Don't turn that off too quickly. Okay. Can you tell us how you got into all of this? So you mentioned starting during COVID. What kind of led you to this space, to this interest, to this focus?
Mm-hmm. Well, I have a teaching degree and I've never been a full-time teacher, and that's pretty much the story, actually, because I went to school to be an educator. I've worked in schools throughout college. I student taught. I got certified in the state of North Carolina. I did all of it. And then I had this really entrepreneurial kind of bug that I couldn't let go of, and I had a nonprofit that I wanted to start. And so I moved to Washington, D.C., and I started a nonprofit, and I did that, and I loved that. And then I was 10 years out into my career, and I was like, well, maybe it's time to go back to teaching. When I didn't go into teaching, I was like, don't worry, I'll be back. I will definitely be back to teaching. I'll be in the classroom, because I loved it. I loved being a high school English teacher. I loved it. And then every time I started to look at going back to it, every time I looked, it looked further away as an opportunity, as a career. And because as you grow in your career, and suddenly, you're raising a family, and a teacher's salary doesn't look as good, and the job's getting harder, and the industry's getting harder, and it's really difficult to go back to it. And I didn't. I went down into kind of an entrepreneurial path, into technology companies, into kind of a COO world, and I focused a lot on employee engagement. In all of my kind of previous jobs, I cared, so I found a passion for that. And so when I was ready to start my own company, I knew it had to be in education, and then I knew it had to be in employee engagement. And it was at a moment in the pandemic when I was watching my kids' teachers literally drive past our houses and waving out the window because they missed their kids and they missed each other. And it was so awful. And it was so awful. And I was like, we have to do something about this profession. This profession needs something. And also, how amazing would it be if this was a profession that all of us considered sometimes? In a job shift, when you are leaving your technology company, you're leaving your project management job, you're leaving your software engineering job, you're leaving your copywriting job, and you think, you know what, I think I'm going to go teach. I'm going to get my teaching credential. I'm going to earn that very hard to earn thing, and I'm going to go learn to be an educator. Can you imagine what our schools would feel like and be like and do in the world if that was the case? But it's not a profession that people think of in that way. People don't think, I could go be a project manager or a copywriter, or maybe I could be a high school English teacher. That's not usually the case. Mm-hmm. And it should be, and it could be. Mm-hmm. And so then we just started taking coffee to teachers after school during the pandemic. They were like, you're the first grown-up we've seen in here in 2 years. And we were like, would you like a coffee or a Diet Coke? All teachers only drink coffee or Diet Coke. It's really, really important to know. So that's what we did. And we just sat down and said, tell us about your job. Tell us about everything about your job. What do you love about it? What do you hate about it? What's hard? What's easy? What's fun? What's scary? And they did. And so we just put all those ideas together, and then we were like, so care packages. So that's where we started.
I often say, let the data direct your decisions. And it sounds like that has been like a common thread for you. Like, you don't have to be the one to answer all the questions. You can be the one answering the questions and then taking that data and let it help you guide those next decisions.
Yeah. Listen to we have 5 core values. They're all actions. The first one is listen to teachers. And it's what we tell our teams every Monday. You know, if you're doing something in our 5 core values, you're probably doing a good job at your job. And listen to teachers is the one we say all the time. Just go get out there, go take coffee, Diet Coke. You know, I had coffee with a principal this morning in Fremont, Nebraska, and her superintendent walked in the coffee shop and she goes, "Oh no, he is definitely going to think I'm applying for a new job." I was like, "Oh," she's like, "I might need to introduce you to let him know that that's not the case." It was very funny. But yeah, listen to teachers.
Yeah. This is a great conversation, and these conversations always go so fast. Start thinking if there are any questions you would like to ask. We will save some time for questions after our conversation. In some of your recap, you mentioned some of your career history, including a brief mention of a COO role. Can you dive into that a little bit more for everyone?
Sure, yeah.
Thank you for telling me nothing is off topic.
Nothing's off topic. Everything's great. Yeah, no, I'm so grateful. So yeah, like I said, I did a nonprofit stint for a while, went to business school, started to understand open source technology, got really into technology companies in kind of DC and then in Austin when we lived there, and then we moved back here. I spent a fascinating year in the elections industry. That was like a study abroad, but right here in Omaha. And that was amazing. Learned a lot about how elections work. And then and data, elections and data, wait time data. And then I went over to Flywheel. Went there right at the conclusion of the Series A there. So right as the moment where everything was going absolutely amazing, but also there were nobody had a manager and there wasn't really a budget, and it was kind of wild and crazy times, and they were like, "Ooh, we should get some of this stuff in place." And I was like, I can do that. I know how to do that. I love spreadsheets. So did that, gave everybody a budget, earned the nickname Fun Killer for a while. It was great. And then, that's true. And then, did that until we sold the company to WP Engine in 2019. Got to see that project through and see the integration through. So got to be a part of seeing 2 companies come together. I learned more in that time of my life than anything. And COO was a really neat role to get to have there, just because it really meant that I spent time in every single part of the company. So when we were restructuring or structuring in the first place, if we were figuring out hiring or developing a leadership development plan for any part of the company, support, sales, I think I worked in every place except engineering, because nobody wants me over there. And I know that. So I'm not good at that. But I worked in all of those places. So I got to really learn and understand those different parts of running a business. It was like a crash course in all of those different things. Okay, let's get to 24/7 support. Okay, let's build sales teams. Okay, let's do that. So I just learned to do that over the course of the 5 years, I don't know, that I was there. And then I spent a little time as a interim COO of a company called Roca. They make really fast triathlon wetsuits and sunglasses that don't fall off of your face. It was an interesting shift. I'd never sold stuff before, so that was great. And then I started this. So I don't know why anybody would have any questions about that particular career path.
I have a follow-up question. So you mentioned, okay, you get there right after Series A, and then you were there until they were acquired, and that was about a 5-year journey for you. And you went from oh, I will do that, to you mentioned learning and having experience, but 5 years, a lot happened in those 5 years. And I think I think it's interesting to think about that progression from an eagerness and excitement to learn and have experience to like being part of a team that's getting a company to be acquired.
Yeah.
Can you tell us like a little bit of that insight of where that shift happened and where you felt like, okay, we've gone from like learning and gaining experience to like, oh, we know what to do and we know how to take these next steps?
Yeah, I think the number one insight I have about that experience is that everybody, when they tell a company story, will be like, well, we founded the company and then we raised a seed round and then we raised a Series A, ... And then we sold the company and like the end. And none of those things are actually the most important things in the company. And what actually was the most important thing in the company for me to learn, at least, was there's so much up and down. It's not a straight path from this, like from zero to selling the company. It is 6 months of revenue being amazing and then 2 months of revenue being inexplicably terrible. And it is like we're almost there at 24/7 support and then we're suddenly definitely not. And then there's, and then you are hiring like crazy and everybody wants to work for you and then suddenly 3 people quit. Like all of those things happen and they're all part of the course of the company. And honestly, like I cannot tell you how many months and years I total worked at Flywheel. I mean, I can figure it out, but it's because you just put one step in front of the other and you keep showing up every day and doing the thing. And then all of a sudden one day it's like, okay, it is time to sell the company, apparently. And then at the end of that day, you get up and you say, okay, and it is time to make sure that everybody knows what they're doing in this newly combined company. And you just do that. And it's day after day. It is a really, really unsexy answer to your question, but it's really the truth of what I learned there is that it is your company and your culture and everything is made up of millions of little choices and decisions repeated over time, and it's never a straight path. That's honestly, I didn't know that before that. I had this like very glamorous view of what joining a startup was going to be like, and then also after I left that, I had a really glamorous view of what it would be like to start a company and go from zero to the seed round, and that was also not quite as glamorous as I was expecting. That's also a lot of one foot in front of the next.
Love it. I would love to open the discussion up to questions if anyone has them. I always say, and I shared with you earlier, that I love these conversations because it's not just Googling information on how to have a startup or how to have a successful business. This is so much more of the story and the behind the scenes. So I so appreciate you sharing all of these details. This is so great. What questions do we have? We have a lot of questions.
I promise hard questions.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
You collect a lot of interesting and customized data. How do you present that to the school system or teachers? Is that in a personal way or customized, standardized? I'm curious.
It's really early days. So we've just been doing that for about, this is our first full school year of presenting that data back to school districts. We present it in a really lovely dashboard. We have some rules about our dashboard and what it can't do. And one of the things we try really hard to do is stay focused on the words teachers are saying and show those actual words, how much those words are used, how positive or negative those words are, what they might be, what combinations of words might be indicating something. So if you see words like alone and solo and isolated all together across a school or across a period of time, like there's something around belonging and or loneliness that might be happening. And so we bring those forth. We try to not abstract it into a lot of percentages and indexes and stuff like that, because we think you can quickly kind of glaze over with that. So we try to just read you back the words in some interesting ways, in a way that feels really digestible for the school leader. That's where we've tried to stay focused. But we do it in a dashboard. They can log into it the second their survey is done. If you've ever taken a survey at a school, it usually takes like 3 months for all the data to come back. So our leaders really like the fact that they can do the survey, and like by the time they get back to the desk, their dashboard is live and it's ready for them. So we try to focus on that. Great question. Thanks. Mm-hmm. Yes, Charlie.
I'd love to hear more about, like, I think the core of your team is one that's really impressive here. It's just how you kind of think about that first hire or the second hire versus like now putting it around together, where I'm sure there's some scale opportunities here. Just kind of the culture in the team that you build. I'd love to.
Charlie Cuddy teeing up my favorite question of all time. I'm obsessed with our team. We have a really special team. So our first hire was one of my colleagues at Flywheel, Kimberly Bailey. Here, most all of our team is here tonight, which is a testament to how we feel about one another, about this company, and about showing up for each other. So I think Kimberly and I started talking about this idea in this company, and when I was still building care packages for teachers in my basement, Kimberly came over and said, friends don't let friends have bad photography of their products. And so she brought her camera and like poster boards and a light and stuff, and was like, don't photograph that. Let me do this. And she did. And it made us look so pro and so great. And so over time, we just realized how big of a deal the brand and the delight and the joy of this company had to be. And so brand had to be the first hire. And I'm almost worse at brand than I am at software engineering. So that was obviously one that wasn't going to be me. Kimberly was obvious option. And then to be honest, we've grown. We're careful with hiring. We're really, we do not take it lightly at all. And we try to keep teachers at the forefront of it. So we have educators on staff and as freelancers. We also, and then we build our team really, really nimble, really flexible. We ask a lot of our team, and we're really upfront about it. We say you're going to work very, very hard in this job, and they do. Every single one of us does. But we're really proud of it. We're proud of the way that we work together. We happen to all currently on our team be women, which is actually really fun, accidental. But we do happen to have an all women's team right now, and we have a lot of fun seeing what we love seeing. Like, I have a daughter. Like, I love having her come in, and I love her seeing an extraordinary and fast growing and big, kind of big thinking company run that, and where it's not at all weird that that it is filled with women who are powerful salespeople and marketers and software engineers and operations leads and everything. So we're really proud of that. We're gonna keep growing it the way that we're growing it. We love investing in people who are somewhat new in their careers or in this career moment, and who want to build and grow into something new. That's like my favorite thing in the entire world. So we do a lot of that. Yes.
It sounds like the bootstrapping went really well, and it was good timing for investment. It sounds like you got your hi-fi prototype really well, and you knew how to do that. And after hearing the investors, they actually sound perfect for the region. And look at something like Nelnet; they have an interest cradle to grave, right? So how did you get to communicating that core value, just in general, in investing in general, and then also get over the imposter syndrome or inhibition or whatever, core value, imposter syndrome, stuff like that?
Yeah. I'll answer the second part first. I'll send you a memo as soon as I get over the imposter syndrome. I'll let you know. On the other side of it, I think being unapologetic about what we're building and not trying to be something that we're not. So, you can get to somebody who will easily, quickly be like, well, you're not pure software, and that's not particularly interesting to us. And you're like, maybe we are pure software, but you can't. Like, we're just like, no. And so what we had to do is put all of our cards out on the table and say, listen, we're probably going to need capital that's a little more patient than some investors will be. We will probably need more patient capital. We will probably need investors who care deeply about making an impact in the world, or you might not like us. We might care too much about that stuff for you. If that's not your jam, that's fine. And this is what we're building, and it's why we're doing it, and it's why we sometimes sell physical things. By the way, I think one of the world's greatest fun luxuries of the world will start to become things like sewing circles and things that are physical stuff. I think we're going to care more about physical stuff in our future, and we do in our office, because it's more rare now to work in the world of physical stuff and in things. But who does every single day is teachers, and so and they're not going to stop working in physical stuff, actually. So we had to be kind of unapologetic about it and get okay with a lot of no. You just have to get okay with a lot of no, and that's what we did. And once we started being really real about who we are and who we aren't, then I don't know, it started going a little better. Yeah, thanks. Yes.
You talked earlier about how you started with a parent-funded care package, and you said that it worked really well, worked really well, and it worked really badly where it worked really badly. I would like to hear more about that.
It's a really surprising story, actually. What we expected was that schools in really well-resourced areas would have tons of parent support, and they would chip in. So we had this platform where you could chip in $5, $10, or $20 a month as a parent or a community member or PTO, whatever. And then we would pool those dollars, and we would use those dollars to send your school packs. There was a part I didn't fully think through, and that's what happens if 3 parents each do $5, and all of a sudden you have $15 for the whole school for packs each month. That was something I could have done a little better. But we kind of thought that schools with lots of resources would just be flush. They would have plenty, and that schools that were in under-resourced areas would not have enough. And it wasn't quite exactly opposite, but it was close. So what we found was that schools in more under-resourced neighborhoods and areas had more churches and community organizations and kind of creative fundraising that they knew how to do, because those leaders are man, if we don't have a whole lot of parent support, I'm going to find this, because we are definitely having a party for our kids for Halloween, right? Or that. So they're out there figuring out all of that stuff. So they actually found way more dollars for their parent platform. In schools that were in kind of higher resource areas, we experienced a lot of parent fatigue, fundraising fatigue with those ones who were oh my God, one more thing where somebody's asking me for $5 a month. I just can't do it. So it was really unpredictable. And it sometimes worked amazing, and it sometimes really didn't. And we couldn't count on it in order to cover. We kind of figured at some point, it'll kind of all even out. It does not. So we stopped doing that.
I'm coming back this question.
Yeah.
Why were you not able to generate enough revenue through volume, even if you're hitting the low resource areas? I imagine if you're national, you'd still be able to bring in more than enough money to cover the cost of the company.
Yeah, I'll tell you the real answer, I think, is the case with that. I think what we were doing felt like a nice to have and not a need to have. It felt fun, and it felt neat, and it felt cute. But it didn't feel this is actually going to help us solve our teacher retention problem. And I think when we started saying, no, hold on a minute, actually recognition and reward is part of a really robust employee engagement program, but employee engagement is a lot more than that, and that's when we started seeing traction with it. So I just don't think the value proposition matched the desire in the market for that.
So was there higher churn because people would take the care package one time, and then that was a nice thing, thank you for doing that, but there was no return on it. They keep coming to it until you started to expand the business where you're trying to provide a larger, broader service for retention. That's what I'm hearing?
Yeah, that's generally kind of right. Yeah, that's generally kind of right. Yeah. All right.
It's 2 questions.
I'm ready.
It's kind of piggybacking on that. Now, I'm just curious, out of the PACS, surveys, resources, whatever else I'm missing, what do you think, what is or what do you think will be your best revenue stream? And then second, what are patterns you're seeing in what teachers are saying?
Oh, Thanks. That's a great question. Not too hard of a question. No tequila required. Thank you. He offered earlier. Anyway, as far as what I think we'll get to the most of, I think the surveys and dashboard will be the most important part of what we do. I think they go really well with some of the other things we do. The resources that we provide are really actually part of that data and listening product. So the resources, we make resources for school leaders that are about how to build culture, team culture. We actually have started surfacing and suggesting those specific resources based on the words that teachers are saying. So as we get smarter about the words teachers say, we are able to start saying, hey, your teachers are feeling like this, and here are 3 things you can do about it right now. And here's the download of that. So the resources and the listening part really go hand in hand, and I think that'll be the biggest part of the business. It's also very, very simple for us to sell anywhere. So we currently have customers in New Zealand and Canada and Kenya for that product, and we cannot get the care packages out there. So that's that answer. What we're hearing from the teachers, and we're going to be publishing some work around this summer once we have a full school year's worth of data. But one of the things that we've been really surprised about, first of all, one of the things that we hear a lot is how surprised principals are to see how many positive words, how much positive sentiment. It sells so much more news to use words like burned out, exhausted, the super incendiary words are very popular to use, and so they are the only words that people think are the words, but they're not. They're not at all. The real sentiment around being an educator is so varied, even down to the single response answer. So most of our responses, you can choose as many words as you want. Most of our responses have some combination of positive and negative sentiment, and I think it shows. It's a really complicated profession right now. People are still incredibly dedicated, incredibly passionate about the work. And they're also experiencing some challenges there. I think the most challenging feeling that teachers are feeling is loneliness. To be honest, I don't think it's anger or frustration. I don't think it's pay. I don't think it's any of those things. I honestly think I think the overwhelming negative sentiment that we see in our data right now is somewhat around fatigue at certain times of the year, but the one that's most consistent is around loneliness. And I think we got to look at that. Silva.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was just, the Surgeon General, right, said that having loneliness, so there's a background of that. Just teachers are part of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. I have 2 questions, which feels a little greedy, so you can take your pick, or you can answer both as you please. The first one is about the mixture of funding, the philanthropic, governmental, VC, and how was there a challenge, especially with bringing the philanthropic into that as an investor? I would just like to hear more about that, like ways of speaking about it, and whether that was immediately understood as an opportunity or whether it was sort of a wander in the wilderness to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And then my second question is more future-oriented. It's like, given what's happening now nationally, how do you feel about that with regard to your business? And is that something that creates opportunity or the opposite? To be simplistic.
Excellent questions. I'm going to answer your questions in reverse order. I don't think there's ever been a better time to be focused on the problem of employee well-being in almost any industry, but most certainly in education, than right now. I tell our team all the time, and it feels like that we rowed a really, really teeny little boat out into the middle of an ocean, and there's about to be a storm, so everybody get ready. But we also are ready. We are we're building something that can say back to a leader, here's what is going on, and here's what you can do, and you can do things to take care of your teams right now, no matter what else is going on in the world. And I am so excited about that. That's why I say this is the work of my lifetime. Like, this is the most important work I'll ever do, because I'm so excited about that. So I feel really, really good about where we are in the world and when we started and what we've built, and where we will be. As far as the question on that mix of funding, it's such a good question. It's definitely not obvious that there is, people don't think to pitch a philanthropic foundation, but people like the Gates Foundation, people like the Rakes Foundation, there's a lot of philanthropic foundations that make strategic investments, especially strategic investments that are what's called impact investing. And impact investing is a very real, very, very cool part of the world that I don't think we talk enough, especially in smaller startup ecosystems, but this is one where we should, because Omaha has a very special opportunity to combine its extraordinary philanthropic community with its extraordinary business community in a way that I think we could lead impact investing for the country. I actually really think that this city should and could lead it. I think that people like Lozier Foundation see that. They know that, and they care deeply about education. And so we started doing work together, like kind of in partnership. And then they said, we're coming into the round, and it's not a donation into the round. Like, they are invested, they are shareholders in our company. So is Invest Nebraska, so is Nelnet, so is Workshop, just like everyone. And I'm really proud of that. Like, I really want people who care about impact in the world to be shareholders in our company. I think that's really cool. I think we should see, I think that's something we have an opportunity to see a lot more of in the community.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We are
we out of time?
Out of time. Yes, but I feel really bad about cutting you off. So we're going to make this the very last question.
There we go.
But thank you all for such a robust conversation.
Okay, so I'm a fintech founder, but I'm also a business coach for a lot of social entrepreneurs who are creating social change and cultural change, a lot of therapists and psychologists.
Oh, cool.
Your dashboard sounds like it would be really powerful for creating an aha for these schools. Like, here's what your teachers are saying. Here's how we can use our boxes to create recognition and reward. Have you thought about partnering with other people for, like, here's the skill that's missing in your teachers, like, it really open up more capacity for them to feel more equipped in their classrooms?
Yes. What I thought you were going to say is, have you considered partnerships for mental health solutions for educators? And the answer to that is also yes. So I think some of the work out there around resilience in educators, there's some amazing work out of the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence around this. I'm obsessed with it and them, and they would like me to stop calling them all the time. They are doing amazing work. There is a really amazing app and project that stemmed out of the pandemic called How We Feel. If you guys had the How We Feel app during the pandemic, where you like checked in and said how you feel, if you were sick or not, that has morphed into an emotional well-being and resilience check-in tool. We also love that. And we think that there are huge opportunities to connect, to listen, as we've said, and then that support piece can come, like I said, in the form of recognition, but it could also come in all kinds of other different support pieces. So support around leadership, around building high trust teams, about creating connection to our communities, about creating healthy workplaces, physically, mentally, emotionally, socially, and about creating opportunities for growth for educators. So yes, yes and yes. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Thank you all for being here. Amazing story.
Awesome. Thank you guys for coming out tonight. If you want, grab another drink at CrossTrain, have another piece of pizza. We'll be back again on the third Thursday of every month. So next month on May 15th, we'll have Paul Hogan, founder of Homestead, coming to chat here. So all of us on LinkedIn will keep updates on who's going to be speaking, but wanted to say thanks to Karen and Teresa for being here tonight. And if Karen will be here, otherwise their office is right around the corner, like she said. So come find them, and everyone on their team, they're amazing. So thanks.
And come next month to Scale Omaha. That's going to be a good one. That's going to be really good.